Greetings, people. So it's been an interesting week, hasn't it? Oh my goodness. First of all, the local council elections. Now, I defy you to go online and find out the numbers of turnout for the local council elections. Go on, do it, Google it, DuckDuckGo it. See if you can find out how many people actually bothered to turn out to vote. I couldn't actually find it. I did a lot of research. I couldn't actually find it, but someone who came to our stand in the park on Sunday said that the figure was something like 30%, with the lowest being Tyneside, which was 22% apparently. Somewhere up in Tyneside, only 22% of the electorate actually turned out to vote. And of course, the introduction of voter ID must have had an impact on that. I did notice there was one little story, I think it was in the Independent, which said, and the anecdotal evidence from the tellers in Berkshire were that 10 to 15% of people had to be turned away because they didn't have the right voter ID. All of these stories buried though. But what it means is that if it is true that only 30% of the people actually turned out to vote, what it means is people are losing interest in democracy, and the system is losing its credibility with the people. I mean, if only 30% of people, if only 3 in 10 people actually bother with the whole of the election system, then that doesn't say a lot for the credibility of the votes. I mean, here in Bakewell, the turnout was 47% compared to 42% last time. And I have to say, just to give my campaign leaflets a bit of credit, they were actually aimed at the 58% who weren't inspired to vote last time, encouraging people to use that vote to vote against the big corporate. So in the end, I got 175 votes, which was kind of on a par with Lib Dems. The Green Party got about 309, I think. The Labour guy, a really nice guy actually, really sweet guy, I forget his name. He got about 500, I think 550, and the 2 Conservative councillors who won the seats got about 600 and just over 1,000. Those are the figures off the top of my head. So it was a Conservative hold, and so Bakewell is a very Conservative area. Our totally inept MP Sarah Dines was there at the count, absolutely refused to speak to me when I asked her about the global pandemic treaty and why the Conservatives were planning to give away our sovereignty to the unelected World Health Organization. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Because certainly Boris Johnson was kind of voted in on the basis of his Brexit stance. So having had a referendum where allegedly the people were saying they didn't want to be ruled by EU, didn't want to be under the rules and regulations of the Europe, basically. Like within a few years, suddenly we're handing our authority over to an unelected global body, which is mainly funded by Big Pharma. Go figure. But no, she didn't want to talk about that at all. So this is the thing, isn't it? These MPs, these authorities, they've forgotten that they are our servants, and they seem to think that they are our masters, which kind of brings us on to the coronation. I'm down here by the river. It's a beautiful day. I'm actually in Bakewell today, not in Crestbrook. I wanted to go to Crestbrook, but Kobe, some days he just digs in. It's like, no, I want to go to Bakewell. He's got his little, he hasn't been here, so he needs to mark his territory. So anyway, the coronation. I didn't actually watch the coronation because I was out at Crestbrook doing a land blessing on Saturday morning. figuring that the locals would probably be glued to their goggle boxes. Anyway, I did actually watch it. I'm very interested in symbolism and all of the archetypal symbolism of the coronation. So I did actually watch it in the end. But oh my goodness, it really was like watching some kind of panto, wasn't it? With all of these people dressed up in these weird costumes with all of these props. And if you look back at the Queen's coronation, which had a real sense of grandeur about it, this, yeah, it just did seem like a kind of cheap panto by comparison. And also, you know, obvious symbolism like the blue and gold carpet, essentially putting the Ukraine flag into the coronation ceremony, when in truth those carpets really should have been red and blue, should they not? Or am I missing something? These things speak to the subconscious mind and all of the symbolism. It was so interesting. I didn't realise it was Penny Mordaunt who was the striking lady in blue. She very much held the archetype of Athena, did she not? Very, very stunning. And, you know, these archetypes, they speak to the subconscious mind. It really did seem like a sort of emperor's new clothes scenario to me, that we are expected to pledge allegiance to Charles Windsor. But of course, so many people now are standing in their own sovereign power. And of course, the coronation oath is a pledge by the king to uphold the rights of the people. Because the people, in truth, the people have the power. And this is the point about democracy. You know, the people have the power. And the system, and the electoral system, all the systems, they rely on consent. They rely on consent of the people. So what happens when the people remove their consent? Like, no, I don't understand. I don't consent. I don't agree to this anymore. Essentially, we have a reversion to our common law rights. So everything that people say, oh, it's illegal. No, it's unlawful. It's actually unlawful because our common law rights cannot be removed by any government or body or authority or institution. They only have authority over us if we consent to it. And that is a little known thing that you won't be taught in school. But increasingly, people are waking up to their rights, to their common law rights. So no one, just to repeat, no one has any authority over you unless you consent to it. And under common law, our obligation is simply to cause no harm, injury or loss to our fellow man and woman. And in the event of a dispute, who decides? Well, under common law, a jury decide, the people decide. So 12 people, independent of the situation, upon being presented with the evidence on both sides, make a decision whether that person is guilty or not. And of course, we're all innocent until proven guilty. And under common law, under a trial by jury, all 12 of the jury members have to find the accused guilty of whatever the alleged crime is. And in coming to that verdict, they can ignore any legislation whatsoever. So the jury has power to make a common sense decision. And that truly is the power of the people. And it has to be unanimous, so beyond any reasonable doubt. So times are changing, folks, and it does seem to me that more and more people are opting out, people are questioning, people are reclaiming their power, people are asserting their common law rights. And we are indeed in an era of awakening consciousness. And just to add as well, I almost forgot to mention, the hatchet job done on me by the Daily Mail. It was quite interesting because it came out 3 days before the election, and I mean it was just such a fabrication of lies. And I've done a lot of media work. I know from my Dragon's Den era and my Red Letter Days era that the newspapers just basically twist and sensationalize everything, because their job is not to report the truth. Their job is to sell newspapers and get clicks, and so the more they can twist and the more scandalous they can make everything, the better. So it just really drove it home. Well, it drove it home to me. I didn't really need to have it driven home because I know I've dealt with the media for many years. But anyone who was involved in placing that story, and you know who you are, might have been your first exciting foray into the world of media. You got your pictures in the tabloid newspapers. Well, hopefully you will realise that what you are reading in the newspapers and in the mainstream media is devoid of truth and factual integrity. So if they're lying to you about that, then what else are they lying to you about? And notice how the timing of the election, this is another interesting thing, because when I got back from the count and sat down to watch the evening news, to watch the full results, and I don't normally watch mainstream media, but there was no articles, there were no news articles about it. It was all about the coronation. What a great day to bury bad news. So the timing, just ask yourself, why did they choose those dates for the local elections and the coronation to coincide so closely? Because they didn't have to, the Conservative Party, who of course are in the driving seat in terms of timing for these things, they didn't have to have such intense coverage. And certainly there was no coverage that I could find on the turnout, as I said. So again, twisting the stories, burying the bad news, because they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know that people are losing interest in the system. They don't want you to know that the government is not supported by the people and the system is not supported by the people. Yeah, interesting times. I'm quite entertained as I see more and more people waking up, and I see more and more of the pantomime failing to have any influence or credibility with the people anymore. So sending you lots of love. Have a great day. Bye for now.